Welcome to the Table Network podcast. In this episode, we interview Jodi King, author of You Got This, and half of the band Loving the Outcome. Jodi, thanks so much for being here. Former DCX speaker and performer, but you're doing a lot of other things. If you could start just by introducing yourself to our audience and tell us some of the things you got going on, that'd be awesome.
You got it. Thanks for having me. This is so fun. I'm Jodi. I am a Canadian girl from the prairies that was like, man, I love singing in my hairbrush. I would really love to have a microphone that's real one day. And I really never gave up, just trying to go after my dream. And I met my husband along the way at a really cool pub in the middle of Winnipeg, Canada, where we're from. And it was freezing cold and he was singing a Sting cover. And I was like,
That's
oh my
it.
gosh, he's so hot. And so over time we became friends. We ended up touring together for a little while in another band. And then one weekend, my guitar player got sick and we were married at that point. I'm like, babe, do you want to be in my band? And he's like, yeah, let's try it out. So we went on the road for a weekend. And then that was kind of the beginning. We were like, we don't need to drive back home. Let's keep playing shows. Let's keep going. And so we just started playing shows together. It was at that point, it was Jodi King and the Lone Wolf, very indie cool. Like we were just like, we're so cool. You know, you can tell with the beanie, like it's obvious.
Yes.
So yeah, that was the beginning. We were, our first tour was really glamorous. It was in a clothing store called Roots Clothing. They do like Canadian Olympic wear in malls. So we played malls.
Okay.
That was our first tour.
Yeah, that's cool.
And, I don't know, honestly, looking back, it's crazy that we had the guts to keep pushing this dream forward. But something in us was just like, we got to try. We've got to try and do this. So we sold our condo with everything in it and we hit the road. And honestly, we were it sounds like a joke, but it was the truth. We were broken homeless for like 2.5 years.
Dang.
Sleeping on floors after 3 club like set nights and like really grungy basements. We stayed with friends and just sold CDs out of the trunk of our car to just kind of keep going. Yeah. So that brings us to Nashville, Tennessee, where we feel like we don't really fit in. But who really feels like they fit? I don't know. Show me that person. Mm-hmm. And we're here and we are really trying to show up for our life. That is full of bumps and bruises and tricking ourselves into thinking we made it and all these crazy things that the ego needs to hear. And so here we are, we're still married and I feel really proud of that. We still sort of look in the same direction, which is cool because we've done a lot of pulling things apart and putting them back together, but we have stayed tight. We have 2 boys that mostly come on the road with us when their public school is really generous, lets them come along. And I've been writing some books. I've been trying to honor that sort of whisper of like, hey, sorry, decline. There we go. Hey, like you guys are married, that's awesome, but you also have your own thing. So I've been doing a little more speaking, been doing a little more writing, and trying to speak to women as a woman who is very imperfect. And not just say it, but actually like really show up and be honest about that. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of me. I make sourdough bread. That started during COVID. Who knew? Yeah. I love it. I love eating it, love making it. And that's a little bit about me.
Dude, I love it.
Yeah.
So marriage and the band survived the Canadian mall tour. Mm-hmm. You guys are now loving the outcome. Yes. And you've got 2 roadies you're taking with you based out of Nashville, Tennessee. Could you tell us a little bit about the current iteration of the band name, Loving the Outcome, how you got that? And you guys just put out some new music?
Yeah. Yeah, we really struggled to find a name because we were 2 separate bands when we met and then we became a band together. And so we're like, okay, we want love in the name, but we don't want to be too cheeseball, even though we are very cheeseball. And so after like some terrible ideas, we finally settled on, okay, what are like the non-negotiables in our life? For us, God is love and we want to be love in the world. That's how we want people to feel. when they're at our house for dinner, when they're at our shows, when they meet us at the library, wherever. We really want to be loving people, where everyone feels welcome. And so that's what we decided. God is love. We are the outcome. And it felt like more than a band name, but an invitation to people, in the audience to be like left with that question. When I feel fully loved and seen, how does that affect how I am the outcome of that in the world?
Yeah.
Cool. I love that.
What a powerful question to wrestle with. And I didn't think it'd get cooler than Jodi King and the Lone Wolf, but loving the outcome.
You did it.
That's it.
That's awesome. It's like a mantra as well as a band name.
Yeah. Something to actually live out. It's pretty cool.
In high school, we had a band that we put together. No real musical talent, just a band, like a group that hung out. And it was going to be the Mighty Morphin Texas Rangers.
The Mighty Morphing?
Yeah, like Power Rangers.
Yeah.
But then Walker, Texas.
Nice.
Feel free to use that if you would like.
I'll totally write it. I'll write it.
That's exactly how we respond to his ideas.
Sorry, Tack, go back. But I love even you speaking to, hey, we're a band and we're doing this thing together, but I'm also my unique individual. How am I true to what I'm called to do? And you document, like you journal some of that in your book, You've Got This, where you kind of explore your journey and then some of the inspiration behind the song. And so I think in this episode, we really want to unpack some of the stories that resonated with us from your book.
Sure, I'd love that.
And so if you could start just kind of by setting up the book and why you wrote it and give us some backstory on the book, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely. Well, I started during COVID, all our shows were canceled and we were home with a little more time than usual. And I journal a lot. Like I kind of get up and if I can, I just kind of put pen to the page because I feel like I'm the most honest version of myself when I haven't, put my beanie on and my lipstick and felt all put together. I just let's just get this out right now. Because if I don't get it out here, it's going to come out somewhere in my day. So let's journal it down. And I started to just notice man, I'm really hard on myself. Like I shame myself a lot and I never really feel good enough. And people might not know that about me, but the inner, dialogue in my head is constantly like, shoulda, coulda, woulda, And I thought I cannot be the only person that deals with that. I cannot be the only human in the world that wakes up with that feeling. And what would it mean to still show up anyway? And to just kind of ditch perfect and just show up for your life. And it's easier said than done because I feel like everyone likes to look good. Like everyone likes to show well, And especially being on the road, right before COVID, we'd been touring pretty nonstop with our two kids and they're 18 months apart. And we've been in a lot of really embarrassing situations, like just throw up on the shirt or poop or trying to get on stage. And we barely got on, we were late getting on stage, just really human moments. And the very first time it got really bad was our biggest tour. Actually, our label was all there. We felt like we had to impress everybody. I know you never deal with that, but I really felt like I had to impress everybody. And I was just bawling. I didn't fit into my skinny jeans, which that was a massive blow. I was just okay, I can't do this. And so I went out on stage, in what I'd slept in the night before in my sweatpants. And I made it through the first song in tears. And at the end of that song, I just was like, man, I thought I had it all together, but I don't. And I'm too tired to fake it. And maybe you feel like that too. And maybe You Got This doesn't mean having it all together. Maybe it means that we show up when we don't. Maybe that's what it means, maybe that's what it has to mean or else we'd never get off the couch. And so I started to unpack it a bit and realize when do I feel most like a failure? And for me, it's usually when my goals aren't my goals. They're someone else's goals. It's, my neighbor is trying to do this thing or wear those jeans or have this look or, be this kind of a mom, be this kind of a wife, be this kind of an entrepreneur. And when I try and meet someone else's goals, I always feel like I'm failing. And so I had to really pull it back in that season as a mom, as a performer, because I didn't want to obviously ditch either one. I really wanted to keep going and be a great mom and a mom, the best version I could be in the season of also getting up on stage. And so it was just really yeah, refining my goals, what it looked like, being realistic about it, and then just letting people into it. And yeah, it really freed me up to just be myself on stage. And I think have my internal and my external voices match, which was something I had never really done before. It was like the social media version of me was a lot more cleaned up and pretty. And I talked to you when I had the answers. But real me was struggling in the in-between of all of that.
Yeah.
And now I share the in-between because it's hard to do that. Like, who wants to get on social media when you don't feel awesome? But I don't know. If I say that I'm going to show up imperfectly, then I want to hold myself to that.
Yeah. I love that.
Dang.
There's so much there. The reality of, you talked about those days where you don't want to necessarily get up off the couch or, wade into the world. It's ironic, the feeling that I get when I look in the mirror sometimes and I look at myself and I'm like, basically this concept like, who are you? And it's when I stay there psychologically that I failed. I carry that with me. And so it's so ironic that I'm so worried about people seeing me as a failure. And then I carry that as my banner that day. It's crazy.
So relatable. And isn't it also crazy? I don't know, maybe you guys can speak to this. I feel like in my seasons that are the hardest seasons, because there's an ebb and flow, to life. But in my hardest seasons, it's difficult for me to be in the presence of people that are trying to be perfect. I almost can't hang.
Yeah.
And I know that's not what the person is trying to make me feel, but I just don't feel very welcome. And I think I did that for a long time to a lot of people, trying to be this professional Christian and feeling like I had to have the answers that came with the job description. And just as humans, right, with platforms, we all have platforms. And I've just come to see in my toughest seasons that the people I want to hang with are the ones that let me in.
Yeah.
That actually let me in. That's where I want to be. Those are the friendships that I want.
Yeah, totally. Like the vulnerability breeds vulnerability. Nobody's really drawn to perfection. All we do is compare ourselves. Well, that can't be me, so therefore I don't fit. So therefore we can't even be friends because I can't even attain you, which is so unrealistic.
Yeah.
But yeah, showing up and just being like, this is the messy version of who I am. And I'm like, oh, okay, me too. Like we can do this together now that I know that I'm not alone.
Yeah, we all just want to be seen and understood, right? Like nobody actually wants to be preached to. I mean, maybe we think we do, but we want to feel understood. And I've come to see that with my kids a lot. Like when I just try and give an answer or fix something, it's the worst. Like when I just can let them just sit there in the spaces of like them figuring it out. My son told me the other day, like this story. And at the end of it, I said, what I hear you saying is you felt really lonely today. He's like, yeah, I did. I felt really lonely today. And I want to just fix it because I'm a mom and my son felt lonely and I'm uncomfortable, and instead I was like, oh, I felt like that so much. And then me just saying that let him unpack it even more. And I feel like that's how I want to be as a friend, right, in the world. And someone at our shows that people would sit down and go, oh, I want to have more tea time with you so we could really, I feel safe. I want to talk about this more. And here's the funny thing. Like, you got this. It's a very strong thing to say. So the flip side of the coin is not having false humility. And that's something I try and talk about both because as women, especially, I'll just speak from my perspective and my story. I felt like I had to sort of flip my hair and pretend I didn't really have anything to say and then slip in nuggets here and there or not show up as my full self. Like I was too much. And that's not the message. The message is show up as your full self on the good and the bad days. On the days you're killing it, like, yeah, like fist bump, high five, hair flip, high heels, like all the way, like don't hide. We will celebrate you. And on the days it's messy and hard to get out of bed and hard to get off the couch, we'll bring you tea and we'll sit there together. But it's not hiding. You know what I mean? So it's both. I feel like as women, we walk this tension, and both can be uncomfortable because we're not used to being like, yeah, like I got this, but we can be like that. We can be like that.
No, it's so good. I mean, we talk a lot about authentic community, which can be a buzzword, right? Like an easy out if it lacks definition. But I think at the core of it, the idea is we all have our platforms, like the area where we put ourselves out there and we all feel exposed. And it takes a step of faith to put yourself out there. And we've all got our beanies, like the way that we cope with the world and our insecurities. We all have our insecurities.
What are you saying?
You're pointing at her beanie?
What are you saying?
No, whatever your thing is, right? Like maybe I mask my insecurities with like being the funny guy or the smart guy, the guy that has all the answers, or maybe I just throw some Instagram filters on that photo and, you know, I have a strong outward appearance. Whatever it is, we're all coping with this world in different ways, but the same way at the same time. And so we've got to find those communities where we can fully show up and be fully seen, but where we're able to add value just by being us. And I think of your quote in your book where you talk about like deep relationship is forged through deep waters. Like that is the place of exchange. Like it has to have some level of uncomfortability to grow that relationship and grow us as individuals together. And so if you could help us unpack that idea a little bit, like what do deep waters look like and what would you tell somebody who's going through deep waters right now?
So to be probably too specific with the deep waters, our house flooded almost exactly 2 years ago, end of March. So just shy of 2 years ago. And I'm actually the room I'm sitting in, I'm looking out over this big, beautiful, empty green space, which is why we sort of bought the house in the first place. And then that was the thing that flooded and sent us into some very deep waters, uncharted deep waters. And it's something that I had said a lot, you know, like I want depth of relationship and like I really love that. But I hadn't had a lot of things go wrong. Honestly, I hadn't really lost even grandparents. Like life had been pretty smooth. We had to work really hard to make this life across the border happen, to get visas. But to be honest with you, like I live with a lot of privilege, right? I got credit cards and anyway, my life even in America is more privileged than a lot of Americans, which is really a crazy, crazy thing to think about. And it wasn't really until the house flood, and then that honestly began. The house was a metaphor for our whole life, just one thing after another. And at first, for those of you that read the Bible or have some sort of view of the world or theology, like really rocked our theology, really rocked our view of what does God being good mean. I felt like I'd sowed good seed and I should reap a good harvest, to use some biblical, references. And it just really, really messed with me a lot. I felt like I'd done everything right and everything had gone wrong. And it didn't add up. Like the math was terrible. But going through that experience, and this is not me putting a beautiful sheen and wrapping a nice tidy bow on it, because there's no tidy bow. Like I wish I wasn't in an elevated house 5 feet off the ground, looking out over this field that cost a lot of money and a lot of discomfort. Like I wouldn't have chosen that, like never. But with the unchosen road comes these gifts, these hidden gems. Because now I'm like seeing people that I didn't see before. I even going in church, which I didn't do for a very long time. Now when I do, I see everyone who's left out.
Yeah.
I didn't see that before. There's just so much that going through these deep waters, it really does change you. And I kind of went from me to we, and in that season, I couldn't do a lot of the things. Like we'd tour, and we're good at living out of suitcases, but then we had nowhere to go home to for a year and a half with our little kids. And so I was in need. And being in need was new for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt really embarrassed. I felt shameful. I felt shame from that. Just a lot of things. So a lot, and all the Christian cliches I grew up with, like everything happens for a reason. I just wanted to punch that person in the face, you know? And all of a sudden these like surface level truths just weren't enough for me. There was like a deeper truth underneath that I was starting to see and experience. And so, man, deep waters, like for real. And the way down really is the way up. But we're just going through it in a whole bunch of parts of our life right now. And none of it is comfortable. But I do see a bigger God. I've met a bigger God, and I am more okay in my own skin. And those are good things.
Yeah, I love the the picture of, you know, pain moves us from me to we if we allow it. You know, sometimes it can drive us, you know, deeper into ourselves. But I love that picture. One of the things that we're kind of working through with our tribe here in Austin is this concept of unity and really the fight for unity. And I love that idea of these deeper waters can create these deeper relationships. More meaningful relationships. But maybe talk about a little bit of a flip side to that, which is kind of the idea of perfection, and maybe how does perfection get in the way of unity?
Oh, man. Well, I feel like when we have a perfect picture in our head, that always messes us up. Like, you know, when we think something's supposed to be one way and life goes another way, whatever it may be. So getting comfortable in the fact that perfect is a myth is like a really good starting place. But for me, I think it was moving out of neighborhoods, communities, places where everybody thought and looked like me and my idea of perfect. And moving into spaces where I could rub shoulders with people and hear stories and experiences. And just gain perspective from other people's lives and history. And so we live intentionally in like a really beautifully diverse neighborhood. It's actually the highest Kurdish population in the U.S.
Wow.
Which is really interesting.
Yeah.
And my son Ziggy is one of two white boys in his pre-K. And it's just a beautiful public school in our neighborhood that we can bike ride to. And I got to tell you, the playground is where it's at. Like, I have never had to let go of perfect more and let go of what I think is perfect. Because that's the thing. Like, we all have our idea of what that is.
Yeah.
And when we won't let go of the way we think it's all supposed to go and how we're supposed to parent and it's a very small world. Like, it's just a boring, small, insular world, you know, and the playground is the opposite. It is moms from all over the globe parenting in their own way, 10 different answers to the same question, 10 different lunches. Like, it is incredible and it's beautiful. And it's been my best teacher, just showing up for pickup and staying to play for half an hour. And so I think just letting go of what we think it's all supposed to be like, letting go of the fact that we think we know best, and getting around people where it gets more personal, like where stories are, you know, meshing up against each other, and you're just getting a broader worldview, a bigger picture, curiosity.
Yeah.
Getting more curious about other human beings and their stories.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
It's so good. I think we're all comfort creatures, like, and if we're not careful, we can make gods of security and comfort, and we can put up our fences and hide away in our houses and never truly connect with people or expand our worldview. I was thinking of like modern melting pots, and it's like your playground in your neighborhood, and the roller skate rink here in Austin, Texas, is just this crazy diverse place where there's so many different people represented, and it's so neat to experience. So
it's so great. It's so great getting outside your own head, getting outside your own perspective, and just asking questions. You know, it's like, I'm with you. I'm new to showing up curious. I spent a lot of my time showing up with the answers. but just showing up curious is just a whole new world.
Yeah. What a cool posture. And it brings other people along in this journey. Thinking of that journey of me to we were talking recently about folding towels and this journey of unity through marriage. Are you a towel folder? Do you have like a very specific way to do this?
Nope.
Is Chris a towel folder?
Praise the Lord.
Okay. And we use that as an example. It was really a conversation starter to say this whole journey of unity is how do we do this thing together? That we're better together, but it takes communication and working it out to figure out how we do it together.
Well, and I love in your book, you were talking about the journey of like you and Chris meeting each other and how you felt like the Holy Spirit was like, I think I can do more married to Chris than I could do alone. And I love that. So I'm recently engaged. I'm getting married in June. And so that really stuck out to me because I think marriage is a really great example of unity, one in the moment of marriage, two becoming one. But then it's, from what I've heard, I'm not married yet, but it is quite a journey working through marriage and constantly having to fight for unity. And so I know you spoke to this a little bit at the beginning, but I'd love to hear kind of what that journey has looked like for you. What are some of the things that you and Chris have been able to do better together than maybe you could have done alone? And what have some of those things, those hurdles you've had to come up against been like?
Jodi, tell me if I'm right or wrong, but she should go on the road with Mike in a van for 2.5 years, right?
Yeah. Is that the best
You can't hide
path?
a lot in a van.
Yeah.
Like you really cannot hide who you really are.
That's good.
Do it. Just do it. So I'll tell you our latest. I'll just give a real time example that may or may not have happened today. It's fine. But our latest thing is we have a 10-second rule for me, largely, and for Chris to just honor how different we are. We're really different. We're like as different as they come, which I think is pretty normal in marriage, right? Or in partnership. You don't just all want to be the same strength. How much cooler to have diverse strengths, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of folding towels, I mean, he's so strong. He's so strong with that. I'm not going to mess with that, you know? But I would just keep talking, as you can see. And I'll put a question out there. I'll answer my question if it takes him too long. Then I'll ask another one. Oh, look at that. I can answer that one too. And it doesn't really breed partnership at all. And so it took us a while, but we started doing this 10-second rule. So I'll ask him something and then I'll wait 10 seconds and I don't talk. And sometimes I wait longer because I've gotten way more comfortable with Chris's pace as my partner. And I don't force him to run at my pace because that's just not what team is. And so it's really been a journey of meeting each other where we really are at, the true people we are, we spent the first couple years trying to make each other into, mainly me, trying to make him into who I thought he needed to be. And, meeting family and like, oh, can you be like nicer to my sister or like all the things. And then you realize like, man, I fell in love with you because you are such a quiet leader. You have so much strength. You're a true bass player. Like you just hold it down. And when you speak up, I listen. And he knows how somehow to like, I don't mean this in like a put me in my place way that I need to be put in my place, but he knows how to bring a truth to the surface in love. And I'll listen like I don't listen to a lot of people. And so it's been a journey of that. Just like I'm a 3 on the Enneagram. I'm a 3-4. So I'm like feeling things and then I'm moving and I'm processing and I'm going. He's a 9. So he's back here thinking about the first thing I asked him at 9 a.m. And it's not that one's better, one's worse. We're not always meeting each other in the middle.
Yeah.
And so we've had to put some real practical, tools in place to just honor each other and to speak love to each other by the way we communicate.
Yeah.
Because you can say, I love you, and then spend the whole day not acting like you know the person at all.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work great on the road. That doesn't work good at home. And so, yeah, there's just been a lot of teamwork that we've done over the years.
No, that's awesome. I mean, that applies obviously to marriage, but in so many ways in any relationship. And I love how you were saying it's not about you morphing him into what you want him to be, but you sacrificing like, okay, no, this is what he needs for me in this moment. And that's what I'm going to do. Like, that's truly loving and serving him.
Yeah.
It's not putting that pressure on him to be what you need him to be, but what can I do to be what he needs me to be?
I also think about this, and it just kind of hit me as we were talking, because here we're talking about unity. And I know that it's a struggle for all of us to kind of get outside of our bubble.
Yeah.
And so, like, my worldview as it interacts with, others throughout the day, it either drives me maybe toward them in curiosity, or it drives me away in pride. But here we are talking about this concept that opposites kind of attract.
Mm-hmm.
You think about our spouses. My wife and I can't be more opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to process through, why is it so attractive on the surface in that capacity? And I'm just thinking about, when I feel the most loved is when I'm the most messy version of myself, and yet people are proactively loving me. And I just think about that in our marriage, and in this whole talk about unity. It's when we're messy, when somebody reaches out and says, you have value in that moment, that's the most attractive that person's going to appear to me, is out of my messiness, which is a weird maybe concept that just kind of hitting me as we're having the conversation. But yeah, this idea that in that moment I found my wife attractive and how different she was. She filled gaps. But over time, then the differences become resentment, because it's like, well, stop now. Yes, I like you, but now be like me. And that's just so divisive.
Oh, you're totally right. Yeah. It's like getting back to that, like the fact that that's how you fell in love, really.
Yeah.
It was so attractive, like you said. Yeah, man, that's so true. And there's things we say to each other once in a while. Like Chris will ask me, do you want an answer or do you want to process? And I know that's just helpful in, like you said, in all relationships and in life, because there is this tendency to, like, we love each other so deeply that seeing them hurt is really hard. So you just want to fix it. But you don't feel seen, right? You don't. And so just, it sounds funny and not very romantic, but having those little things to just, that language, I guess, is the right way to say it, that shared language together. And realizing, like you said, I want to love you and have fun with you. What's getting in the way? You are not my therapist.
Yeah.
You can't be my therapist. If during the flood, it was this shared trauma. And for a long time, we were trying to put the pieces back together just on our own, and just like leaning on each other, and no one else gets this experience. So we're just in it together. And about 6 months in, I was like, I think we're both gonna die of sadness and exhaustion. You're navigating insurance. It's like your second job. I'm trying to keep the wheels on, because we got to get kids to school, and we got to figure out where we're living next month. And like, I need to go to therapy. I need to go. And I need a place that I can just yell and cry and have someone else listen to me and not judge me, but it's not you. And I wish that was shared more in marriage counseling, that, this is your best friend, and to become one, and you're going to share everything together, but you still need girlfriends for shopping. You still need to go to therapy. You need to call your mom, and you need to go on dates where you just decide, like, ask him about his favorite band. Like, what was that song you said about that band you just heard? Like, just get out of the weeds of how heavy it is to be a teen sometimes, because it's just a lot of work. So those are some of the most recent things we're both realizing.
And this from a woman who's married to a guy who, honestly, I think he looks like Sting.
Yeah.
So,
if he can't figure it out,
I guess,
No, that's so good. That's worth the price of admission right there. I know for me, my temptation or my tendency was to make my wife like the everything, the solution. Like she was all of my community and all the answers and my problem fixer and the mother of it. And yeah, you got to take that weight off. It's just not fair. Codependent and enmeshed, and you've got to bring other people along in this journey also. And yeah, I need time with not my girlfriends. That would be problematic. But I need time with others and community from others where I'm able to give and receive.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah. That's good. Man, this feels like marriage counseling. I'll just make sure Mike listens to this episode.
I'll send it to him personally.
I always joke with that. I'm like, I'm the most motivational speaker of all time. Like, I just only have like hard stuff to share, and then we'll laugh. So
no, I love it.
It's perfect.
You've
That is
spoken to
life.
my soul.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Well, Jodi, I want to wrap with like a lightning round, if that's okay. I know we didn't plan this, but I've thought of a couple questions while we're sitting here. Are you game?
I'm sweating. Let's go.
Okay, sweet.
So
we
Kenzie.
can't see it yet. Okay, easy softball first. If any band were to play a house show at your house, what band would you like to play it?
Oh, it's not really a band, but Lauryn Hill.
Okay.
Very cool.
Go on. That'd be fun. I'd like an invite. Any other questions?
Well, I wasn't prepared for this.
Yeah, your
you said
lightning
you
round
had
was
a
one
bunch of
question.
questions.
Yeah.
I know. I thought about them and then I forgot about them.
Okay, I have a question.
Wait.
How long have you had your sourdough starter going?
Oh, well, I killed one and then started another one. So this one's probably 2 years.
2 years? That's great.
Wow.
Yeah, I've shared it with friends. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, and on my achiever self, when I feel like I've achieved 0 and I'm really not enjoying that feeling, make some bread.
There you go.
There we go.
I love
Bread.
it.
Okay, last question. So you're a creative and a parent, and I'm always thinking through how do I encourage or foster creativity in my kid? Do you have any pro tips?
Yeah, just leave things out. Like, don't clean up.
Oh, there. That's
That's good.
amazing.
I'm good at that.
I know it's hard for me. I'm not saying this because it's easy for me, but my son Milo is, I don't want to like type him at any, I'm not going to Enneagram type my kid, but he's really similar to Chris and really different from me. And so parenting a little human who's not like me he's my best teacher, but he works out his feelings through drawing. Awesome. And so we just kind of honored that and put in their room when we moved back into the house, we had some extra, like, sounds funny, but really beautiful lightwood plywood, like a thick piece of plywood. And so I sanded it down and put it up with some brackets in his room and just plunked like all of the creative things up there. And so he'll just come home from school, change into his jammies right away after the playground. And then he just kind of starts drawing what he feels. And I think he feels understood by his parents, just that that's there for him. And so I don't clean it up. I just kind of leave it and let it be for him.
Yeah,
That's good.
I think making room for the messy is a good relational piece of advice across the board.
Okay, I thought of a question because now I wanted to ask one.
Okay.
And then this can be the last one because I feel like it'll end on a good note. Okay, what is one piece of advice or one thing you would want listeners to leave today walking away with? One thing you just want them to hear.
I think I can just speak from where I am. And where I am is getting comfortable with not knowing. And I feel like we just have to hit those places every once in a while in life where we go from climbing, big goals, big plans, achieving. And then something shifts in your worldview, something shifts in your life. You go through a new struggle and it sends everything off kilter. And it's just uncomfortable to be off kilter, right? Certainty feels great.
Yeah.
But it's really in the curiosity and the uncertainty that new things are born. So just knowing that you are right where you're supposed to be, and you don't need to apologize for where you are. And if where you are is in a place of, I don't know, then that's a good place to be. Even though it doesn't feel great, like just stay in the gray.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Perfect.
Yeah. I don't know is okay too.
Yep.
It's good news for me. So, Jodi, thank you so much. If people want to connect to you or Loving the Outcome, what's the best way to get connected?
Sure. Everything online is just at Love and the Outcome, spelled out, one word. I have my own little thing at I am Jodi King, and you can hang out with me there. All our music's everywhere you download stuff. We have a song right now that we just, for the fun of it, because TikTok is so crazy and weird, but the kids are doing it. I'm like, we better do it. And, but we've just been putting up like older songs that seem new to people. And we have a song called End of the Day. That's not that new, but it's kind of having a moment. And I think it's an encouraging, fun song to just show up as you are, but not take yourself too seriously. So you can check that out.
Love it.
That's so good. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today and joining us on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for joining us in this episode. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. Follow along our journey. And there's also a place to give feedback now. Let us know what you want to see in future episodes.